In collaboration with our MECO 2026 fantastic medical staff, the international federations, the National Olympic Committees, and all for the benefit of the athletes. But even with the best medical care, as we all know, injuries happen. Illnesses too, and both can prevent athletes from reaching their goals. So beyond physical health concerns, we also know that mental health has emerged as a priority in athlete care, with growing recognition that psychological safety and well-being is as essential as physical fitness. We also understand the emergence of the importance of safeguarding and how much that impacts the health of our athletes as well. We not only want to help build a better world through sport, but a healthier one as well. At the IOC, Department of Health and Medicine and Science, we believe that healthy athletes are happy athletes. They are more successful, they stay in sport longer, and they give back to sport long after their careers are over. So we want to move away from simply reacting to injury, but being more proactive, more responsive, and addressing the needs of the Olympic movement head on. So this short video shows not only who we are, but most importantly shows you our why. And I'm going to hope that we get the sound on, and I'm going to try to play it. But if not, it's still very impactful, as you can see all the images of the why we do what we do.
Are you sharing the screen?
Okay.
Are you sharing the screen? You just have to intervene.
Okay. Apparently we are not seeing the video, so we're going to try to do that outside of the presentation.
You see it?
Yes. Okay. Take two. Okay, well, thank you. We'll see if we can find the sound by the end of it if people haven't been able to hear it. So we'll try to get that sorted by the end of the session today. Basically, what we really want to ensure with this seminar is that we're sharing the insights live from Milano Cortina and providing you with real-world insights from the front lines of athlete care. So through the 4 compelling sessions that you're about to hear from today, we'll start with session 1, discovering what medical teams are preparing for Milano Cortina 2026, from injury surveillance in winter sports to mental health in the Olympic pressure cooker. The second session is looking at sports medicine at the Olympic Games, going behind the scenes with the chief medical officers from Italy, New Zealand, Germany, and Estonia as they share their unique perspectives on Olympic medical care. Session 3 is clinical challenges in Winter Olympics, mastering the clinical skills needed for Winter Olympic medicine. And session 4 is your Olympic medicine toolkit, leaving equipped with practical IOC resources that you can implement immediately. So mental health support frameworks, athlete safeguarding protocols, and pathways to advance your expertise through specialized training and certification in sports medicine and science. Welcome to Milano Cortina 2026. Welcome to Olympic Medicine Uncovered. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jane. Maybe you can use the study a little bit here in the room. Thanks a lot, Jane. Okay, so I have about 5 minutes to talk to you about what we know about injuries and illnesses and the patterns around those health problems in athletes in winter sports. So you can see I changed my title slightly here because we are in the Olympics. My original title was in winter sports, but our goal with this symposium is to give you, as best as we can, a feeling for how it is to work in the Olympics, what are the challenges we face, and the opportunities that come with being in the Olympics. So I just want to tell you, since we have about 4.5 minutes now, everything that I'm presenting today is available online already. Our goal, as has been for many years, is to be very transparent with everything we do and share all the data and all the results we have with everyone. So that's why we have published all these results for over almost 15 years now. These are the 4 papers from the past 4 Winter Olympics. And how do we know what the patterns are in the Winter Olympics? Well, it's because we do surveillance of all the athlete health problems that occur from the start to the end of the Olympics. I'm not going to bore you with all the details here, but this is an overview. You can read all about the methodology in those papers that I just referred to. More importantly, here are the main results. And what this graph does is that it summarizes all the Winter Games injuries all the way back from Vancouver 2012 throughout Sochi, Pyeongchang, and Beijing 2022. And I will see if I can exactly, so you can see the whole graph. The way to read these graphs is that you can see that on the y-axis it has all the injured athletes and the percentage of the injured athletes in each sport, which are listed on the x-axis. It's sorted by the red color here. Roll, can you see my pointer if I'm using my pointer? No. Anyway, so you see the red columns. These are injuries that led to more than 7 days of absence. So it's sorted by that. And you can see that over these past 4 Winter Games, there is a pattern of certain sports. And in this case, unfortunately, snowboard cross and slopestyle, as well as ski cross, ski halfpipe, and ski slopestyle, having high injury rates where up to 28% of all athletes are injured. That's if you include all the injuries. However, if you look at the injuries that lead to time loss of more than 1 week, you see that in these same sports, 6 to 9% of all the athletes are out for more than 1 week if they participate in the Olympic Games. I apologize for moving ahead quickly because I don't want to take the time of my fellow presenters. Obviously, we can drill down in these data sets as we wish. We have a lot of granularity in it, and here you see the distribution among women and men. And in some of these sports, there are differences between the two sexes. And you see, for example, in snowboard cross and in ski slopestyle, that the rate of injury in women is over 2 times as high. And you see that up to 35 to 40% of the women in snowboard cross and in ski slopestyle across the 4 last Olympic Winter Games are injured. So we have a challenge. What does it look like? Well, this video does not have sound, so don't worry. This is from Sochi, the slopestyle final of a female athlete who unfortunately gets injured. It doesn't look too good here, but it was not very severe, I can tell you that. But you can see it doesn't look good, and you can also tell, I guess, more or less from video that there will be injury here. I will not share exactly what the injuries are, obviously. What are the injury locations? Well, in these main high-risk sports, in snowboarding and freestyle skiing, it's the knee, it's the head, it's the shoulder and clavicle, ankle, so on and so forth. Apologize for moving along quickly. What are the injury types? Well, it's the injury types that usually follow along with those injury locations. So it's contusions, it's ligament ruptures, it's concussions, fractures, so on and so forth. So those were the main injury patterns in the Winter Olympics. What about illnesses? Obviously, athletes competing in sports, particularly in winter sports, are exposed to illness as well. Well, we see that in the Winter Games, it's the endurance sports that are mainly afflicted, with Nordic combined cross-country skiing and biathlon, unfortunately being at the top of the leaderboard, where 9 to 11% of the athletes get an illness during the games. And then you have about 3 to 5% of athletes in these sports with time loss in any Olympic Games. For women, we see a distinct patterns throughout every Olympic Games, be it Winter or Summer Olympic Games, where women have about 50% higher risk of illness across the board, more or less. Well, what are the organ systems affected by illness in the Winter Games? Well, it's a very clear pattern, and it's the same across all Olympics, winter or summer, where respiratory illness and particularly upper respiratory tract infections predominate the statistics, followed by gastrointestinal illnesses, dermatological injuries, so on and so forth. So the big question is, what will it look like in Milano Cortina 2026? Of course, we don't know yet. We're in the middle of the game. We're just finished week 1, and we are here doing the surveillance. So we look forward to seeing how this develops over time. That's exactly why we're doing surveillance. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Torbjörn. That was fantastic. It's a pleasure to be presenting here at this scientific session. I'm a sports psychiatrist, and I'm here to speak with you about the mental health at the Olympic Games. I have a short period of time as well, so I'll go quickly. Just a little bit of symbolism on the first page here. We see the Olympic rings with a porous circle around it. That really represents the fact that the Olympic Games are not an artificial portal where athletes step into and suddenly the world is outside and it's all about performance. These are human beings that bring their histories and everything with them. So we need to be ready for what that may mean for their mental health. These are some of the headlines that you would have seen over the last week or two. These are real headlines, which really reflect what our athletes are facing. The verbiage that is used, the words that are used, you can only imagine the real effect that this is happening for the athletes in their lives. So this can certainly have an impact on their mental health, and we need to have services available here to be able to support them through that. So what may we see here at Olympic Games? Again, it's not an artificial place where everything is rosy, but athletes may actually have pre-existing mental health challenges before actually coming here, which can be exacerbated or triggered when they get here. And that may be directly or indirectly related to sport itself, or it may be completely unrelated to sports because they are human beings and they do have lives outside of sport. Athletes may also experience brand new onset mental health symptoms and disorders at games, which again may or may not be related to sport or performance, and can be mild, moderate, or severe in nature. So this here is a list of common challenges that we can see in athletes at games and outside of games. These can be just at symptoms or at the level of disorders that are diagnosable. The first 3, depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, may or may not be related to sport. We also have eating disorders, mania, personality disorders, substance use disorders, which can manifest here or can actually manifest as withdrawal if the athletes don't have access to their substances of abuse at games, and there can be suicidal or homicidal thoughts or behaviors. So some serious things that we need to be aware of here. And also to consider athletes whose performances are interrupted or affected by illnesses or injuries that get in the way of their ability to compete. Can also trigger some acute mental health challenges at games. And we also need to consider the stage of their careers if any of these things happen, because it can be quite devastating for them. Most of us know that mental health experience is experienced along a continuum. This is just one example. You'll see various examples of continuums of mental health. This really just reflects the healthy side to the illness side and everything in between. Ideally, services at games should address all of these things, but our approaches should include prevention. So prevention of illness or being unwell, we should focus on maintenance of wellness, and we really need to be able to respond to all levels of symptom experience with the space and the personnel to really address all of the athletes' needs that may arise. You'll hear from my colleague Scott shortly about some of the services that are available on this side of the spectrum. Here, I'm just going to quickly tell you about what's available here at the Olympic Village in Milano, and it's replicated at some of the other villages. Again, Scott will talk more about the Athlete 365 Mind Zone, which is the first picture here on the left. And there's also a de-stress zone here in Milano, which is a beautiful pavilion with lots of light and comfortable couches. There's a recreation center. There's a memorial garden, which is a profound addition to villages. But I think what you can see with all of these spaces is these are areas that the athletes can access completely different from sport, separate from sport, that can actually help them be well. On the other side of the spectrum, we tap into clinical services. In the villages, there are polyclinics where there are psychological services available on an emergent basis. There is someone on site during the day as well as on call at night, and psychiatry is also available on call and at the hospital. Really what I want to think about here is what about in the middle of this, where we have the reacting to injured part of the continuum, which I think is an area that we can actually make a big impact on, that I'm really interested in things going forward. We want to prevent illness. We want to prevent progression along this continuum. And I think there's a lot of potential areas for growth. So I've had lots of conversations in the last 2 weeks with folks about how to actually address this part of the continuum. Some potential areas for growth include, again, addressing all areas with available services and space. A little bit of a sneak peek for you in the upcoming year. The updated IOC consensus statement on mental health of elite athletes will be released in the coming months. And there's an athlete mental health related risk assessment tool, which will also be available to you in the coming months. So stay tuned for those things, which should be helpful in your clinical practice. And some final thoughts to wrap it up. There are still areas and services that can be improved as we continue to grow and adjust to the mental health services to athletes at games. We continue to learn. Feedback from NOCs and athletes is welcome and very valuable to consider for future games. And again, remember this, if nothing else, there is no optimal performance without mental health, and that always begins with the athlete. Thank you.
Oh, I think it's my turn. Can everybody hear me? Yes, thank you. So I'm here to talk about safeguarding and how to break the silence, how to destigmatize the topic of harassment and abuse that a lot of us in sport have suffered and are still suffering. So what is safeguarding? What is this funny word that is impossible to translate to other languages? So safeguarding is about all the proactive measures that we can put in place to both prevent and appropriately respond to concerns related to harassment and abuse while promoting a holistic approach to the participants' well-being and welfare. We work, you may have seen this in the context of COVID. It's the Swiss cheese metaphor, and it's about layers of protection, right? Each slice of cheese represents a layer of protection. And so the more layers that we have, the safer the environment is. I'm not going to go into detail because I also have only 5 minutes. We have the enablers, and then you're hoping that when the threat goes through all of these layers, there is one that stops it by, having done all the education and capacity building, by having policy. One of the layers will stop the threat. So we work on putting layers of protection in place in the environment so that we manage to avoid and reduce the risks to the minimum. So what types of interpersonal violence are we talking about? Well, it's the typical physical, emotional, psychological, sexual, with the psychological abuse always at the center, at the core of all other forms of abuse. It is quite common to find more than one form of interpersonal violence happening at the same time. And very, very important to understand that abuse is abuse, both in the physical world and in the digital world. My colleague Scott will talk about this more in detail later on. Interpersonal violence happens in sport in all of the disciplines. It happens at all levels of participation. It happens from persons in position of power, and this is real power or perceived power. It happens from adults to children, but also from peer to peer, athlete against athletes. It happens by men and women, but also to men and women. This is not a woman's issue. There is a lot of young boys and young men abused in sport, and it happens worldwide. Although we know that some of the areas in the world are understudied, so that is one thing that we're working on, is to do more studies in areas of the world where we don't have a lot of data and evidence. We take a public health approach to safeguarding at the IOC, and this means that we are addressing the problem of harassment and abuse through the lens of public health, focusing the attention on the bigger picture through the adoption of a popular rather than individual perspective. Important to know that this approach addresses the determinants of well-being through the multidisciplinary and multi-agency work, that it emphasizes prevention, early intervention, and addressing the root causes of safeguarding issues, that it collects data systematically and uses the evidence to inform decision-making, to prioritize resources, and to evaluate effectiveness of interventions. And then we also work in a multidisciplinary environment, teamwork, like we say in sport. And it emphasizes that it's not only about responding to concerns when the harm has already occurred, but it is important to deliver systems and cultures that actively prevent harassment and abuse against participants. A person-centered and trauma-informed approach that we take as well is one that engages with survivors within a kind way, that respects their rights, their needs, and their dignity, that is in the local and in their culture, and that it protects from retaliation and re-traumatization and discrimination, and keeps them informed at all time and supported. So what are the numbers? What are we talking about? This comes from the consensus statement that I will present later on today. And you see a very wide range of prevalence data. Sexual abuse goes from 0.5 to 78% of cases, and this is when athletes have at least suffered one form of sexual abuse or one form of any of these forms of abuse at least one time in their sporting careers. The difference in the range is because there is a lot of different ways on how this is measured, and there is not yet a very established systematic way so that we all talk about the same thing. But you see here, it's a big problem. We have 78% of sexual violence, 79% of psychological violence and neglect. So it's a big problem. What we also know is that higher competition level and more than 16 hours of training a week are associated with higher exposure to harassment and abuse. Male athletes are more vulnerable to physical abuse, while female athletes are more vulnerable to sexual and psychological abuse. Other vulnerable groups among the athletes are the LGBTQ+ athletes, the para-athletes, and they report more prevalence on different types of abuse. And also that the majority of the persons who suffer abuse in sport do not report within the context of sport. They report outside of the context of sport. So that's one of the big work that we do, is to try and build enough trust so that people report within the context of sport, also as well as in the authorities or to parents, to friends. Who are the perpetrators? Who are these people that abuse athletes and abuse people in sport? The important thing here is to understand that there is no such a thing as an offender profile. They don't go around with a sign on their head saying I'm an abuser. So it is very important to learn how to identify the signs that an environment is toxic. They do not have a specific appearance, or they're not people you can identify. They're not crazy, they're not sick, and they are people we know, people we trust, and people have an impeccable reputation quite often in sport, and they're quite often very powerful. So how can you help in the medical field? You can help by recognizing the signs of abuse in clinical consultation. You can help by proactively responding to concerns when you detect concerns when you're treating an athlete or treating a person. You can help by ensuring that you work in a multidisciplinary context involving people from other professions. And you can also help by making sure you refer the cases to the appropriate specialists outside of the context of the medical field. This is just to reinforce, you are in a position of trust when you're a doctor of an athlete or a psychologist. So please learn to recognize other issues happening to the athlete, beyond clinical consultation. Please do not limit the intervention to treating symptoms or treating the strictly medical issues when you detect signs that an athlete may be going through a process of abuse. Take a holistic approach, like I said, work with other specialists within the medical field, but also outside the medical field, safeguarding officers, social work, law enforcement, etc. And also be aware of legal requirements, how to report, where do you need to report, time frame. If something is severe, then you need to have a different time frame. And all of this you can learn so that we can all support the athletes better. So what do we do at Games Time? We have a very comprehensive approach at Games Time around a very simple but very powerful question. Are you okay? And this is all run by the space called the Mind Zone that Scott is going to talk more in detail about. We have a safeguarding framework, which is in fact our policy for Games Time, that defines responsibilities, codes of conduct. Everything is in the policy for the games, and everybody's obliged to comply with it. But we know that policies in themselves do not protect people. People do. So what we do and we aim is putting together a team of safeguarding stakeholders at Games Time that helps us with the prevention and also the proper response. In Milano Cortina, we have 4 IOC safeguarding officers, and we are certified safeguarding officers, but also mental health first aiders, so that we can make an initial assessment and then refer to the specialists, also in the medical field. We have 73 NOC welfare officers accredited from 36 countries. All IFs are represented with a welfare officer, and we also have chaperone accreditations available to support athletes under the age of 16 with their special needs. And we have a collaborative program, an educational program to further education and capacity building, and also build network and promote working together to make sure the systems are consistent and cohesive. The Regional Hubs initiative, I will go very quickly over this. It's an initiative that we're developing, these regional hubs for the region, by the region, aimed at providing care and support to athletes and persons reaching out for help in their context, in their language, and within their culture, and adapted to their needs. And we're piloting 3 regional hubs right now, and they're going to start hopefully working maybe next year. So we're working on developing these hubs to help the athletes. And that's it from me for now. And I'll talk to you later on resources and frameworks. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, thank you so much to our team. Thank you, Torbjorn. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Carla, for your fantastic presentations. We started off a little bit late, and so we will just take one question for now, and we will come back after. This is a question addressed to Carla. So if you do have questions, just pop them in the Q&A, and we'll have a look at them throughout the sessions. And it says, Dr. Carla, thank you for your presentation. My specific question out of curiosity is if issues like self-harm and thoughts of suicidal intent also appear. If so, how common and how are these managed? Many thanks. So maybe a quick answer on that one, even though I know it can take some time to answer that, Carla, and then maybe we'll type an answer or direct some resources going forward. Thank you so much.
Sure, it's a great question. And yes, they absolutely do happen. Most of the time they would be directed to the polyclinic. However, the NOCs, the National Olympic Committees who have mental health providers with them can also address those challenges. Yeah, and I think that's, I can follow it up later.
I think I went over. Okay.
Can you see it?
Yes, yes.
It's a way to deal with it going forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Roald Barr, and I have the pleasure of chairing the next session. Let me just get the session slide up here.
Okay, can you hear me? Hope so. Okay, dear friends, dear colleagues, as a doctor of the National Olympic Committee of the host country of the 2026 Winter Olympic Games, I heartily welcome all of you to Italy. First of all, let me thank organizers, especially Roald, Lars, and Torbjorn for their kind invitation to speak in this session dealing with what is outside the standard teaching in university classrooms. I also thank my co-authors Maria Rosaria Squeo and Giuseppe Di Gioia, who assisted me in the preparation of this speech, focusing on how we prepare our medical team for this important event. Winter Olympic Games belong to the series of mega events of global interest with huge attendance lasting for a long period of time as Summer Olympic Games and World Football Championship. The local organizing committee is charged to select a team of medical doctors with a specific expertise in setting up all medical issues before and during the event. The medical plan issued by the local organizing committee is the most important document. It provides detailed strategies and guidelines for management of any healthcare issues along the event. This is the first document the participant doctors should read, know, and take care of it. Italy has a long-lasting history in sports medicine. The first postgraduate specialization course in sports medicine was opened just in the State University of Milan in 1957, thanks to the pioneering vision of a physiologist, Rodolfo Margheria. After the 1960 Olympic Games, the first games with a huge TV broadcasting worldwide, the first Institute of Sports Medicine belonging to a National Olympic Committee was opened in Rome on November 6, 1963, under the management of Professor Antonio Venerando, a cardiologist whose main scientific interest was sports medicine. In Italy, a national law issued by Italian Parliament in 1976 and updated in 1982 established that all athletes willing to participate in an organized sport at any level under the umbrella of a national federation must be checked up every year according to a well-defined protocol, which includes spirometry, urine sample analysis, and rest and step test ECG. As a result of this checkup, the athlete is declared fit or unfit to participate in any sport. Mainly thanks to this law, in the last decades, the rate of sports-related sudden cardiovascular deaths has dramatically decreased. Moreover, for athletes provisionally selected for possible participation to Olympic Games, the rules of National Olympic Committee establish that they have to undergo a detailed checkup by the doctors of the Institute of Sports Medicine of Rome. At the time of this visit, all Olympic athletes are known by the doctors of the medical delegation taking part to the Games. Knowledge of Olympic athletes and the medical history and medical status is a key point of the preparation of doctors for the Games. The new Olympic athlete medical protocol includes several investigations, mainly focused on cardiovascular aspects. But in selected cases and in some specific sport, the protocol includes some more specialties. An overview of all investigations performed on athletes selected for 2024 Paris Olympic Games was recently published, allowing us to draw some interesting conclusions. Besides the obvious differences in the oxygen consumption between skill and endurance athletes, among the 772 investigated athletes, 4 presented with cardiac abnormalities resulting in non-eligibility. About Milano-Cortina pre-participation screening, 325 athletes of all disciplines were preliminarily screened. A same difference in pattern of cardiovascular characteristics and maximum oxygen uptake between skill and endurance athletes was found. And the second and third level of diagnosis was required in about 25% of all cases. Comparing the figures of pre-participation screening of last summer and Winter Olympic Games, the trend towards a higher rate of cardiovascular abnormalities detected before Milano-Cortina 2026 was not statistically significant. This slide highlights the importance of a detailed, comprehensive cardiovascular screening for early detection of possibly dangerous changes. On a total of 17 cases of non-eligibility detected over 1,505 pre-participation screening performed before 2023 Youth European Summer Games, 2024 Olympic Games, and 2026 Winter Olympic Games, only 10 were detected by ECG, only 1 by adding the echocardiogram, and 6 by the exercise stress test, which is of great preventive diagnosis value, being ECG and echo normal. Back to what cannot be learned and adequately taught at a medical school, sports medicine often presents cases requiring specific competence combined with awareness of the unusual capacity of athletes to recover, thanks to the effect of their extraordinary motivations. Sports medicine is full of cases of unexpected outcomes, even when everything seemed to be lost. Along my long-lasting career as a team physician, I could tell you several cases, and I can witness several cases where I needed to adapt my behavior to some unique circumstances, as science and knowledge missed to assist me. It is difficult to adequately and scientifically predict which could be the sport and the Olympic fate of a case like this of an alpine skier, female, 35 years old, sustained a severely displaced fracture of the proximal tibia in April 2025, and then in December 2025 was declared eligible and selected for Milano Cortina Winter Olympic Games. And then, is the Olympic game participation and motivation strong enough to compete in a high-risk sport with an ACL deficient knee? And what about this case where with a massive bone resorption and enlargement of a tibial tunnel as a result of an allograft revision ACL reconstruction? Or about this case of a Paralympic snowboard where all professor of orthopedics and myself too, in the case of a patient wearing a revision time constrained total knee arthroplasty, would recommend extreme caution even for walking on uneven floor. Knowledge of all anti-doping rules and participation of in IOC anti-doping course and of the needle policy are another very important factor in the preparation of the medical team, as well as a careful reading of a medical services chapter of the Chef de Mission guide issued by local organizing committee. In agreement with National Federation's medical officers, doctors of the Italian team were instructed to collect by all athletes a detailed list of all medicaments and supplements taken by all athletes just at the moment of their arrival at the Olympic Village. Being the Milano Cortina Winter Olympic Games spread in several cities, in any cluster, CONI set up a medical room equipped with basic diagnostics, therapeutic, and physiotherapeutic devices, serving as a support to National Federation's medical team. In conclusion, sports medicine requires a specific scientific competence, including deep knowledge of a unique sports environment. Knowledge of medical history and health status of all athletes participating in Olympic Games is an essential part of the preparation of doctors selected as members of the National Olympic Committee delegation. And please consider that athletes often can get unexpected capacity to sustain and adapt to adverse circumstances and injuries. Medical doctors selected as members of any NOC delegation must be duly aware about local organizing committee guidelines, medical facilities available in any site of training and competition, anti-doping rules, procedures and needling policy, and about all medicaments taken by all participating athletes. I thank you very much and enjoy the show.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ferretti. My name is Roald Barr, and I'm a senior advisor in the IOC Health, Medicine, and Science Department. And you've now heard a description of what challenges we expected would face us and will face us throughout the Olympic Games. We've also heard from Professor Ferretti about the preparations before the Games. And we now get to the, I would say, perhaps highlight of the seminar, and that is that we're going to hear from three, or actually four, sports medicine physicians who are chief medical officers of the New Zealand, Germany, and Estonia teams. Before we go into their presentations, let me remind you of a couple of things. First of all, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A function in Zoom. And questions that we will not have time to answer while we're at the seminar, we will address at the end of the seminar. So you will get a written answer if your question isn't addressed during our discussion. And also, we have decided to not spend a lot of time on individual personal presentations of each of the speakers. All that information, their picture and their in a short CV, you can find on the event website. So I'm delighted now to give the floor to Dr. Elise Matthews, the CMO of the New Zealand Olympic team.
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Eloise Matthews, New Zealand Health Team Lead for Milano Cortina Winter Olympic Games, and honoured to have this opportunity to discuss how the New Zealand team may be slightly different to some of the other teams within the Winter Olympic environment, and give you a bit of an insight into Team Aotearoa. My background is that I'm a sport and exercise physician. I work in and live in the east coast of the South Island of New Zealand in a lovely city called Christchurch. So we're quite some way away from home at the moment. A bit about the New Zealand team, first of all. Our team is made up of 17 athletes. 16 of those 17 are park and pipe athletes based here with me in Livigno. And we have one athlete who is an alpine skier who is based over in Cortina. Our health team here involves myself as the sole doctor. We have 4 physiotherapists and they are spread out throughout the team. So we've got one physiotherapist over in Cortina with our alpine skier. We have one physiotherapist who looks after our snowboard team. We have one physiotherapist who looks after our free ski team. And we have one physiotherapist looking after our pipe team. There is some crossover within that physio team depending on availability, but they have primary athletes that they look after within those groups. We also have a psychologist here in the ground at Livigno, but she looks after the whole team as well. On top of the athletes and health team, we have approximately 25 other team members. So all in all, it's around 50 personnel that we have here at the Olympic Games that we might need to look after while we're here. In terms of our travel requirements, obviously we're a long way from home, and so obviously there's some long haul travel that's required to get here. But in terms of our athlete population, it's not that immediate long-haul travel that's necessarily the biggest hurdle as a team. Most of our athletes leave New Zealand soil in October, so they have a very early departure time, which poses some challenges in the preparation for the health team leading into these games, and meant that we needed to have our workshops in July and September so that they were still on the ground with us prior to departing for their various events prior to the Olympic Games. There was also some competitions that required travel across the Atlantic very close to the Games. So significant planning went into all of that travel preparation for our athletes in terms of sleep programs, jet lag, and staying healthy during that travel. In terms of a daily schedule, the daily schedule does change quite dramatically from day to day, but I have popped a wee sample up here for you to get a little bit of insight. In the morning, we'll have a medical meeting, usually 7:30 in the morning. And we structure this, first of all, with a bit of a wellbeing check-in for all our team members. The Olympics is a high-stress environment with long hours. So we're really trying to keep eyes on our team members, ensuring that everyone is doing okay from a wellbeing perspective. So that's a really nice way for us to start our meetings. We then go on to do a run through of all our athletes and where they're up to at any particular point in time and what they're up to for that next, what the plan is for the next 24-hour period as well. And then we do a whereabouts run through in terms of which team member is going to be at what event or what time during each day for the next 24-hour period. The training and competition slots in the daytime are quite long and often don't finish till around 2 o'clock. So we're on snow or at event usually up until that time. We then have a performance team meeting in the afternoon about 3 o'clock. And that brings our national sporting organisation leads together to ensure that we are optimising performance for the whole athlete cohort from all aspects. And then there's a night session of training and competition, so very late finishes for both our athletes and staff here in Livigno, often not getting back to the village until 11 o'clock at night. In terms of daily roles within the village environment, first of all, the setup of the clinical space is the first role. I was one of the first members into the village. Shipping is sent approximately 4 months ago from New Zealand, so there's a lot of unpacking and redistribution of supplies. And a lot of preparation, obviously, that goes into that prior to it all being shipped out here. And then we're basically turning a hotel room into a medical room. You can see our medical room on the bottom right side of the slide there. And then we have an adjacent physiotherapy room as well. The medical room's also used by psychology and physio as overflow as required. This campaign, we've had health packs into athlete and staff members' accommodation. So these have some key health messaging to keep people well and to know what to do if they are not feeling well, as well as some key supplies, things like Vicks vapor rubs, probiotics, earplugs, masks, that sort of thing was all in their health box when they arrived in their rooms. Huge role for me here in the village is in illness prevention, so setting up where strategic places for hand sanitising, reminders for hand washing have gone into all athletes and staff members' rooms, and ensuring that if there is illness within the village that those personnel are isolated and the correct precautions are taken so that we don't have further spread of whatever that illness is. We have clinical consultations, which might be for injuries, might be for illness, might be for mental health concerns, all of that going on as is required. And on top of that, when any athlete comes into the village, we do a initial consultation to ensure that there's no new medical concerns that have occurred since their pre-participation medical was done. Ensure there's no new medications, that we are on top of what supplements they're on and that they're appropriate, and that we know about any new injuries that might have developed as well. As a small team, I actually have a dual role, so I'm also one of the wellness officers from a safeguarding perspective. So I always got ears out in terms of what's happening on the ground here and within the village. So we're ensuring that we are keeping our athletes safe. Nutrition is the other big role within the village, so ensuring that there is adequate food availability. These athletes have a huge load, so their trainings are up to 4 hours at a time and they can have 3 consecutive trainings in a row prior to competition. So ensuring that there is enough intake going on and enough food availability, and coming up with lots of creative ways to ensure that there is food availability if there are any concerns in that regard, as well as obviously food safety. Training and competition support in the field of play. In the top picture there you can see the half pipe on the left and the slopestyle course on the right, and in the bottom picture you should be able to see the big air course. So we tend to have a physiotherapist stationed at the top of each of these courses, and I tend to be at the bottom except for the big air where we're both stood at the bottom of the course to provide that support for our athletes. Acute assessments, if required, are conducted in this environment, any emergency response. Obviously, once the local Italian teams have invited us into the field of play, and any transfers through to polyclinic imaging that might be required, further services that may be required for athletes from competition venues, as well as general injury and illness support. We're on radio communication while we're in the field of play so that we can be communicating with coaches and with others within that environment. And sometimes as a small team, we're given other roles. So we might be reporting on where an athlete lands or ferrying things to the top of the course, etc., as is required at any point in time. So I hope you enjoyed that wee insight into the New Zealand team and how we structure our games. I'm sure you'll hear some slightly different views from some of the bigger and other teams coming up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Matthews. And I would invite one of those bigger teams onto the stage. The floor is yours, Bernd.
Okay, thanks, Royal, for the invitation. Hope you're able to see the presentation now. Actually, we do have a much bigger team, of course, and so the idea is I have with me my good colleague Katharina Blume, who takes care of our spot in Milano, that I will give you a short overview about the organizational background and one day in the life of myself at the Games as a CMO. But I will start to give you a short overview about the road to Milano Cortina, of course, from the medical point of view, the organization and my daily business. And then I will hand over to Katharina, who will show you a couple of cases we have seen in the last couple of days. So a very realistic view of our work. If you go to the road to Milano, I think it's important to get all our colleagues with us. And so in Germany, we have a big bunch of sports medicine specialists, and from these and from the sports, they offer us who they want to have to take care of their teams in Milano Cortina, or the same for summer sports. And it starts all for us with a medical preparation meeting, which is much of importance for us to bring together, the several disciplines related to medicine, like all our medicine guys, physiotherapists, psychologists, and the nutritionists. We had that in November for Milano Cortina, and on the way to Milano, we try to inform all these guys on a regular basis to keep them on board. And finally, at the end of January, we have that final nomination where the staff really knows who will be part of the team in Milano in that case. So as we told earlier, it's a very big National Olympic Committee, and we are, with the health part, really one part of the puzzle. So it's important to see us as part of the team. This is our health team. If we look for the central aspects, so Katharina, who will talk to you a little bit later. She is the one in Milano who is, responsible for the medicine. But we, of course, have a head of physiotherapy there, and we have our mental health guys, and we work together as a central part of the German team. What are we talking about when we are talking about the German team? So we have 184 athletes, which is the biggest team we ever had in Germany. We had approximately 250 officials where we have to take care of, and we serve 15 different sports, and we serve all 6 venues for the Milano Games, which is quite complicated to organize. And this is also why we have a lot of physicians and physiotherapists with us. That means our medical team combines with 25 physicians, still 4 in replacement. We do have in Germany if somebody will get sick or have other problems. And for the 39 physiotherapists we have for the different sports, we have another replacement of 8 back in Germany. And on site we do have 3 welfare officers. So what is our daily business when we are working with the team? Of course, if we talk about chief medical officer work, we have a lot of things to do in preparation, as I told you, like checking for the medical eligibility, what we also heard from Andrea. But if we are at the games, we have to take care of media relations, we have to take care of late athlete replacements, for example, or of all these questions regarding anti-doping management from a medical point of view. And the same is with management of therapeutic use exemptions. And therefore, we do not have a clear daily setup, and we have to be very flexible, of course. So last Sunday was a very special day, and I will show you before I hand over to Katerina what was my CMO daily business. So it was a very broad range. At 8:30 we start every morning to have a meeting with all these 6 venues. This is where I'm the only medical people in that meeting. That means we are meeting with the National Olympic Committee and with all the venue heads from those 6 venues. This takes about 20 minutes usually. And as I am in Cortina and I'm head of the Cortina team from the medical point of view, we have a Cortina stand-up meeting at 9 o'clock. Then I go to our outpatient clinic, which we have established here in Cortina for 2.5 hours. And at that day, I had the honor to cover our German federal president. That meant that I had to go to Antholz, driving to Antholz, doing a lot of work with my mobile phone, and taking care of Mr. Steinmeier, who is the federal president of Germany, coming back to Cortina, and then again back to the medical duty at the Team Germany outpatient clinic, which means it's a full day, and of course it's much more than 12 hours work. And I think this is also important for young colleagues to know that when we are taking care of a team at the Olympics, it's most likely a 24/7 job we do have. And the main work in such a big team as Germany is on the team physicians we have. And the role of a chief medical officer is often to be, the senior, if there are any special responsibilities or special questions from our team physicians. To get a little bit more in the daily business and the patient, let's say, sports work, I will now hand over to Katerina Blume, who will show you 3 different cases, what we are doing with Team D and the daily challenges we do have, talking about medicine. So Katerina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bernd. Let me check if you hear me. Hopefully, yes.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
okay. Now, I would like to talk about the practical life. When we talk about a day as an NOC doctor, it's not usually about treating the athletes by myself. It is about when and how we get involved. We get involved when illness or injury affects training or competition. First, and I think that's really important, the most medical problems are first handled by the primary treating team. That's are the physicians and the physiotherapists and the welfare team. Our role starts when the situation affects the team and, in summary, the whole team. Here on the pictures, you see our medical location. I think we did it really well in the first days. We are located in Milano in House E. And here we see that the medical care is interdisciplinary. We have the medicine, we have the physiotherapy and the welfare, and we work closely together, and we share one large room. On the right side, you see a small room. Then there's our silence room for the treatments, medical and also welfare. And so that we have a room under 4 eyes or 6 eyes, or with the coach, with the athlete or other parts of the team. In this setting, and I think it's really important, interdisciplinarity is essential because fast decisions need shared perspectives. On the next slide, the next keyword is coordination. We had in the beginning of the games a suspected norovirus case in other teams and also in our team. And this is not only a medical issue, it is a coordination challenge for the entire system. I think it's the worst case for a physician in such a game setting. And here coordination is the first and most important step in this situation. Also, the medical office, what I showed in the last slide, works as a coordination hub. And our task is to align information and timing and to reduce noise and increase the clarity. This is especially important in infection scenarios. And here on the right side, you see our reaction to the major headlines. We coordinated with team physicians and shared clear information via communication channels to raise awareness among athletes and staff. And I think it worked because we had no case in the team. Furthermore, we organized new rooms, and that's why we need the NOC organization team in the village and outside of the village in case to be. Another key role is knowing when to escalate or de-escalate. The more complex or severe a condition becomes, the more specialized the care must be. And in this case, we need the polyclinic in the village and we need also hospitals outside of the village. And it's really important to know the setting before the game started. In my case, I knew it before because I visited the clinic several times before the games. In this situation, short and direct contacts are really important. In summary, clear communication is one of the most important medical tasks. Yeah? Our work goes beyond House E. It's more over the village, over Mikko, so to you, Bernd, to Cortina, and also to Germany, to the federations, to the families, to the coaches, to the athletes, and often goes to several countries. A day as an NOC medical doctor means stepping back from individual cases. It means coordination, communication, and it means protecting the medical system in order to protect the athlete. Often at the Olympics games, and I think Jane, you said it in a course before, we hear Citius, Altus, Fortius, but in medical care, it is sometimes slower, calmer, and wiser, and it's also in medical care. And I would like also to finish with Ubuntu, so like to the games pre-opening, what is, we can translate to I am because we are, and I think it's the same in the medical side of the team. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katarina, for that insight into, and Bernd, into the life as a CMO of a larger team. Dr. Michael Margna is setting up to share his presentation.
Okay, I'm ready. And thank you. First of all, thank you, Roald.
Just a second, please. Yeah, just 1 second. Yeah.
Yep.
Can I just remind everyone that if you have questions to the panel of this session, to write them in the Q&A option in Zoom. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting you, Michael, and very welcome to this session. Please.
Okay, now my quick 5 slides as we are running lack of time. First of all, thank you, Roald and Torbjörn, for inviting me to this session. And hello, everyone. Milano Cortina Olympics have lasted already about a week. And those who have had enough luck to keep their teams out of medical issues must be really happy and keep their thumbs up not to have any upcoming problems, I think. So, although Team Estonia in Milano Cortina Olympics is one of the all-time biggest in the number of athletes, It's still incomparable to big teams like US, Germany, Italy, Canada, and even our neighbor country Finland. So due to limited number of technical personnel, it's a bit challenge for medical coverage of all these 6 clusters. All our athletes are distributed all over the place, as you can see on this slide. One doctor in Predazzo with sports medicine background, and another doctor in Livigno with orthopedic sports medicine background, covering also Bormio. So planning the medical coverage for our athletes took into account disciplines and clusters where the risk of injury is high. Also disciplines and clusters where the athletes' number and concentration is high. And of course, all the team had their favorites. All our venues where our athletes compete are covered with physiotherapists and medical aid sets. Team physicians, as said, are situated in Predazzo and in Livigno. First time in the Olympics, we used for all our athletes during traveling to the Olympic venues a special collar which has proven to minimize the risk of respiratory illnesses. And this is shown in the center of the slide, and it works through the HEPA filters. But the reality is often unexpected. This is a busy slide, but it explains that seemingly a small thing might take a whole day to deal with, and how good relations to other teams and their physicians may help us out. The problems appear right before the games. Actually, on February 4th, around 9 a.m. in the morning, WhatsApp message came with a video from a male figure skater who arrived from to Milan from US, showing blisters around right ankle caused by taking a new skating boots. I'm trying to show the video. There is light soft tissue irritation with mild swelling. Seemingly not a very serious thing, but definitely a thing which needs to be dealt quickly as soon as possible. So one of our physicians flies to Milan on February 4th and going to Predazzo, another on February 5th flying to Livigno. And it's clear that this situation needed to be dealt from a distance. First, a message was sent to my very good colleague from Finland, but at that point they could not be in help because they were at the same time dealing with a norovirus outbreak inside the female hockey team in Milan. Luckily, Team US physician sees our athlete the same day. The needed care is taken and the additional medication arrive by the afternoon the same day. And luckily our athlete does not miss any training sessions, recovers in a couple of days, and competes on February 10th. So several Team Estonia athletes train abroad. It means outside of Estonia. They have good relations to the country's national teams where they train, for example, US, Norway, Netherlands, plus the local medical coverage is well organized, what is a kind of backup in certain medical situations. On my last slide, I show a stolen part of a slide from one of the meetings in Oslo Olympiatoppen, which to my point of view expresses the values of Olympic sports. And this is high performance culture, meaning that during the Olympic Games, our athletes compete against each other. But we could still be friends, maybe not sharing everything we have, but help each other out if there is a true need. And finally, I would personally like to thank Team Finland physicians for their agreeing to cover our athlete during big air competition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mikael, for ending on a note of friendly collaboration. And to all of those listening to this who are not currently part of the game, I can assure you that that is certainly the spirit of the game amongst the medical professionals who are engaged here, both from the local organizing committee, but certainly also among the team physicians, and especially in this setting here in the Milano Cortina Games, where especially the smaller teams do not have sufficient number of accreditations to have medical personnel at all sites to cover their teams. I'm aware of time, but we do have we do have some time for questions at this point. And I will start by one. Let me see here. I'm reading now from the Q&A chat. And now there's a whole host of questions, so very good. I'll start with the first one here that really goes to all of the speakers. At events like Milano Cortina 26, how do respiratory and allergy considerations fit into medical team coordination? Does any one of you want to address how you deal with that, let's call it a subspecialty of medicine or subspecialty of sports medicine, and how you organize yourself to take care of athletes with that type of an issue?
So should I answer, Rob?
Yes, please. Yes, go ahead.
So, of course, this is a question of for a internal medicine specialist. So we usually have mostly orthopedic surgeons with us, but for example, Katarina and myself, we are internal medicine specialists. And so we are dealing frequently with allergies and of course also with respiratory disorders. If we need a specialist in addition who is really specialized in allergical problems or in pneumology, then we do have a network behind us, which gives us the possibility, on a really easy way to call back. In my case, with the Charité, which is a very big clinic, we do have the department of dermatology as well as the ear and nose specialists who are also specialized in allergies, or to contact the pneumologists in their department. So I think it's really important to set up a network, but on the other hand side, to have a broad basis on site, and we focus on internal medicine and orthopedic surgery, but beside that we have the background in our home countries where we have very short time access to the specialists.
Thank you very much, Bernd. Perhaps I can throw that same question at Dr. Mardna and Dr. Matthews as well. You have a small team. You will have one or two physicians with you to the games. So how do you handle issues with subspecialty health problems where you need consultations?
Yeah, nowadays it's easy to communicate with through video calls. We have good communication with our home hospitals, with specialists in pulmonology and the subspecialties like in dealing with viruses, allergies. So if there is a need, we can consult. But as I showed out in my short presentation, we pay attention to the prevention of respiratory viruses, I think, like many other teams. And we use for this special device during the period when our athletes are traveling. I mean, they have to spend time in airplane, maybe in airports, in buses, and so on.
Thank you.
So I guess from the New
yes.
New Zealand perspective, we're similar to Estonia and spend a lot of time on prevention, and then have a good kit with us for the basics so that we can treat the basics as and when we need to from a respiratory perspective. I guess the common things are common, and so being able to treat those as and if and when they pop up with obviously good knowledge and adherence to doping codes when we're talking about inhaled steroids, etc. for asthma and the like. And then we have what we call a Phone Our Friends network back home. So we have set up that network before we leave. That includes a respiratory physician for more complex needs back in New Zealand, as well as relying somewhat on the polyclinic here in Italy if care is needing to be escalated further.
Thank you very much. So you agreed beforehand then that they don't mind being woken up in the middle of the night for a call from you. I think the time zone difference is what, 11, 12 hours, something like that?
Yeah, 12 hours. So yes, they're very kind to us.
One thing I wonder about is that you've all spoken about caring for your athletes, but in the games, which you might not think about if you haven't been to the games before, only half of the people that you're responsible for are athletes. You're also responsible for the coaches and the technical officials and team staff. And my question, well, I'd like you to comment on that, but the question is very specific. Do you get medical information for all of your staff, the non-athlete staff, so you know of any potential issues while you're in the games?
I can ask maybe first, as we are a small team like New Zealand, at least in Winter Olympics, we bring our medical staff, keeping in mind both the athletes and officials. Of course, we don't need to bring everything with us because, as we have seen in past Olympic Games, the medical service has been being improved from game to game. And I mean, simple medications like, for example, for cold or for somebody turns his or her ankle, or the first aid is available always from our side. But if there is a need for additional care, then of course we send the patient to the polyclinic. If there is a need for X-ray or some blood analysis or etc.
Thank you, Mikael. Bernd, please.
Yeah, this is a very good point, Roald. So if I look to our team, we do have more than 250 officials and only 180 athletes. And so the number of officials we have to take care of is, at least in the Winter Games, almost as high as the athletes number we have to treat at that time. Mostly with, fortunately, easy things like common colds or whatever. But however, for these guys who has serious predispositions, the good thing in our case is that we do have those many team physicians, and they know their officials very well. And so the communication is usually not directly from the official or the patient to us, but from the team physician to us. And they usually know very well at least the preconditions. If something happens here, then we have to decide whether we go directly to the polyclinic, or what Katarina showed in that one case you were talking about, then to the hospital to take care if there are serious problems like heart attacks or like liver diseases we had in that one case.
Thank you very much, Bernd. Now, in the interest of time, I am going to close the discussion here, and we are going to allow ourselves a 5-minute break. So it's 6:35 here in Milano. We will reconvene at 6:40 to give everyone the chance for a technical break. So see you back in 5 minutes.
Okay, that was a good 5-minute break. I have the pleasure of chairing this next session, number 3, which revolves around the clinical challenges in the Winter Olympics with a focus on both prevention and management. First, I will ask Markku Tuominen from Finland to share his screen once I'm finished introducing him. So Markku he's an extensive background from ice hockey, including his PhD, which I believe he finished in 2017. So Markku, please share your screen. Markku, I think maybe you're muted.
No, perhaps it's open.
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having this presentation here. Especially it's very nice to have it because we have little differences between our earlier protocol during these Olympic Winter Games. So I try to share my screen. The IIHF has adopted a concussion protocol for players following head injuries suffered in competitions. All the member national associations have to follow this protocol, and it has been since years now, and we are using our normal form during the women's tournament, but of course during this men's Olympic Games we use a little bit combined concussion protocol together with the NHL. So we can divide it for, we can say, 4 main topics, this area, which is recognize, remove, evaluate, and return to play decisions. And if we start from recognize, because it's always response of the team physician to take care of their players healthy. And it means that, of course, when you are a team physician, you should choose a spot on the player's bench where you have a good view and can move around easily if necessary. And follow the flow of the game, not the puck. If you are following the puck, you are always half second late. We can say so because all the hits are coming usually a little bit late, so it means that the player has removed the puck earlier, and it means that you can't see anything what happens on ice. And keep your eyes wide open and concentrate carefully to the game. That's most meaningful if you would like to be a team physician and follow the ice hockey games. Of course, it's very meaningful to have some knowledge about the games, in which area of the ice has the highest risk for injury, which playing position has the greatest risk of injury, and which period do injuries usually occur. We can say it in earlier it has been in the close to the blue lines where we have got most of the concussions, but nowadays it has changed a little bit to the more home area, and the defenseman is now the highest risk for an injury. And if there is a doubt of injury, try to identify what the mechanism of the injury was. Some situation may be possible to see in replay on the big screen, which helps us a lot of when we are working as a physician and try to find and recognize the situation where concussion has occurred. But when we go to the remove, first of all, when the player is lying on ice because of an injury, always one team medical person can go on ice when the game is stopped by the referee. If needed, physician can ask help from the field on play medical team. It comes to help him in case. And we have from our side produced an instructional video on how to remove an injured player from the ice. It helps to understand that how to take care of the player in a situation where he's lying on ice. But if there's a doubt of concussion, the most meaningful is to remove the player from field on play. That's the most important. After you have recognized it, remove the player away from ice. The players sometimes feels that they are immediately ready to return to the ice after concussion, and they tries to do it. I have learned it myself so many times that player has got a concussion and he try immediately return back to the game. If you ask the player how they are feeling, the answer will be that they are okay, no problems at all. So most important is to move the player to the locker room or a quiet room for the assessment if there's a doubt of concussion. Inform the coaching staff that the player is away from the bench. Sometimes we forgot to do the work and inform the coaches that one player is away from the bench and not possible to continue the game at all. And all games in Olympic Winter Games will be actively monitored by the IIHF. IIHF is very concerned about the health and safety of the players, which is why IIHF has organized spotters to support the teams. It means that sometimes when you are at the bench, you can't see every corner with what happens there, what's the situation there. So it's much better if somebody is watching a little bit outside of the ring and have a better view to the ring. And now during this tournament, for non-NHL players, IIHF personnel shall act as a central spotters. And for NHL players, NHL personnel staff act as central spotters. They are working from New York, watching the games and giving the response to us if there's some situation which should be taken on the table. So spotters shall immediately report to the IIHF medical supervisors on mechanism and visible sign of potential concussion resulting in mandatory or discretionary evaluation. And the IIHF medical supervisors will communicate to the national team if it has been determined by the spotters that an evaluation is either mandatory or discretionary. So we have good communication system together with the spotters and medical supervisors to the team physicians direct to the bench. And if the mechanism of injury was a direct blow to the head or indirect blow to the head, and there is visible sign of concussion, for example, lying motionless on the ice, motor incoordination or balance problems, blank or vacant look. And player is slow to get up following a blow to the player's head or upper torso from other player's shoulder, or the player player's head makes contact with the eyes, or the player is punched in the head by an ungloved fist during a fight. This always means mandatory evaluation to the player. If a player is slow to get up following a mechanism of injury other than the three listed above after the direct or indirect blow to the head, removal from play is not mandatory, and national team medical staff shall exercise their medical judgment as to whether to remove the player for an acute evaluation. This is the discretionary evaluation in case. And if there's a mandatory evaluation, it always means that the national team medical personnel shall remove the player from the playing environment and escort the player to the distraction-free environment for an acute evaluation. So, about the evaluation. If an evaluation is mandatory, the player shall be removed from the play and evaluated for possible concussion using, for example, SCAT6 or equivalent examination by the national team. And the national team physician shall make the decision regarding diagnosis and or return to play for players who are suspected or who have sustained a concussion. We must always remember that symptoms and signs vary from player to player. Symptoms and signs associated with concussions are not unique to concussion and frequently occur without brain injury. And players will be educated that they should report all symptoms to a national team medical staff who will determine if the symptoms or signs are suggestive of a concussion. If the national team physician verifies that the player exhibited any of the below, then the diagnosis of concussion shall be made. If there's memory gap for events prior to, during, or following the event, visible sign of lying motionless resulting from loss of consciousness, tonic posturing and or impact seizures, or visible sign of motor coordination due to a brain-related nervous cause. And of course, concussion symptoms may occur quickly after a blow to the head or body or may evolve over time. Consequently, any player diagnosed with a concussion and those who are suspected of having a concussion should be monitored and evaluated over time. Any player who sustains a concussion during a game must follow the return to play protocol and will not return to play in the same game. When we go to return to play protocol, in the women's tournament, we have used a 6-step graduated return to play protocol. It starts from return to regular activities like aerobic exercise, moderate activity, heavy non-contact activity, practice and full contact, and competition. And each step take at least 24 hours. But in men's size now, a player who has been diagnosed with a concussion shall not return to practice or a game on the same day that the event occurred. In accordance with current consensus guidelines, there is no mandatory period that the player must be withheld from a play following a concussion. The return to play decision is based on individual circumstances of that player. A player may return to play at a time later than the day the event occurred with a complete recovery of symptoms at rest, no emergency, of symptoms at exertion level required for competitive play. Once the national team doctor has determined that the player is ready to return to the play, NHL players diagnosed with a concussion shall be referred to the neurophysiologist for a post-concussion evaluation once he is symptom-free at rest and even exertion and before return to play. Before return to play, the national team physician may not clear any NHL players who are diagnosed with a concussion to return to play until the neuropsychologist has conducted a post-concussion evaluation. The neuropsychologist will conduct a post-injury evaluation consisting of the impact computerized test and the NHL paper and pencil test. Although neuropsychological test data are very useful in assessing the neurocognitive sequelae of concussions, they should not be used to make a diagnosis of concussion or as the sole determinant for return to play. And in the event that the IHF medical supervisor has concerns that the concussion protocol is not being followed, then the IHF medical supervisor shall investigate and, if needed, report the facts to the directorate chairperson, who shall have authority to enforce compliance with the concussion protocol. Thank you very much. That's from my side.
Thank you very much, Marco. I'll bring up the screen again here just to introduce the next speaker. And we thank you everyone for all your questions. We highly appreciate it. We are trying to get organized to actually answer your questions. So I just would like to ask all the speakers who are on the panel to see if you can get into the Q&A to answer many questions in writing as well. And at the end of this session, we have 15 minutes for discussion. So we will try to answer a few questions then as well. So with that, I'm happy to introduce Maarit Valtonen, who is a medical doctor from Finland. She's an international expert of respiratory illness, and I am excited to hear the lessons learned in the Finnish team and throughout her experience about respiratory infections traveling to and during the games. So please share your screen, Maarit.
Thank you, Torbjörn, and thank you so much for the invitation. I hope you see my slides now.
Yes.
Yes, good. I also, because we've got some major publicity from our norovirus outbreak, I have to say that I will touch a little bit of GI infections in my short presentation as well. But yes, like Torbjörn shared earlier in the IOC injury and illness surveillance studies, we've really seen how the respiratory illnesses are the major and most common acute illness during the games. And of course, our athletes know this, and we have some athletes in certain disciplines who are especially vulnerable of these infections, or their performance is especially vulnerable. And you find these from the high ventilation sports like cross-country skiing and biathlon athletes here in the Winter Games. This is a New York Times article from during the Pyeongchang Olympic Games 2018, which shared some mitigation strategies that the athletes have approached themselves. And I do agree with this reporter how these viral pathogens are a challenging opponent for our athletes and us, the team doctors. Invisible, omnipresent, and tireless. But let's look who these opponents are. So acute respiratory infections are caused by about 10 different viral species with hundreds of subtypes and serotypes. You can't really differentiate these according to clinical symptoms alone, but they have some differences in the characteristics like incubation time and risk of complications. It is also important to note that unfortunately only influenza viruses we can treat with antiviral medication, but we do have vaccinations to influenza, COVID, and RSV these days, for example. One important issue when we are here with our teams is, of course, the transmission routes. Before corona pandemic, COVID pandemic, we were really focusing on the touch transmission route, washing our hands, and of course that's still very important. It's especially important when we are preventing GI gastrointestinal infections. We know that the transmission route with GI infections is from stool to hand to your mouth and GI system, or from food to mouth and GI system. But when it comes to the respiratory infection, COVID pandemic really taught us that it's the inhalation, the airborne transmission route that is important, and I think that's why my colleague from Estonia has been focusing on the clean of the indoor air, like he was introducing. And of course, this is what challenged us during the games, where we do spend a lot of time together in indoor space and eat in crowded cafeterias and so on. So and also we've learned that during the games a lot of the risk factors that we face with the respiratory infections accumulate during these games, and so it's pretty natural that infections go around here, but there's obviously a lot of things that we need to be aware of and build team strategies to be able to manage these risk factors. And I will give you a few examples how these can look in a team environment. When 2018 we were preparing for the Pyeongchang Olympic Games, we of course understood that there is a lot of these risk factors. We flew in a long haul flight, 10 hours to South Korea. We knew that the accommodation will be pretty crowded. We even knew that there was a lot of infections in the community in Finland when we left. We actually had a huge influenza epidemic and RS virus epidemic in Finland when we left. So it was no wonder that we saw a lot of those infections in our team during the Pyeongchang Olympic Games. A lot of our entourage especially left from their families where they had young children who often carry viral pathogens in their mucus. But so we were prepared to follow our team, and actually we wanted to understand better what viruses or what is actually causing the respiratory symptoms in our team. And we were expecting a lot of infections, but not as much as we actually got during those games. This is a timeline during the Olympic Games in the mountain village where our Nordic events and the downhill ski events were. And the color spots are each new infection episode, and different colors present different viruses. So we had 9 different viruses going around in our group, in our team, and most of them actually came from Finland. That's what we learned. We were trying to prevent this. We were isolating people. We were, focusing on the hand hygiene and so on. But as you can see, it looked a lot different, the team environment, than especially during the pandemic and afterwards. And we were very frustrated with the situation, because we were working hard to prevent it, but it seems like nothing really worked. But then COVID pandemic hit us, and we learned that when the mitigation procedures are really high, we are able to prevent these infections. Actually, we redid our studies during the pandemic games in Beijing Olympic Games and Oberstdorf Nordic Ski World Championships, and learned that we had 10 times less infections than before pandemic. And this, the infections did go down to 0. We still had single cases, but because of all these mitigation procedures, these infections did not go around in our team. And so there's a lot to learn from the pandemic. And now that the games have started, even though we still have a week and a half to go, I do think, and I do dare to say that a lot of these lessons have been learned. We have much less infections during the games here compared to the Pyeongchang, and that's what I'm hearing from the other teams here as well. We think that in the Pyeongchang Olympics, it was the long-haul flight. It was a major thing as well. And now, of course, when we are in Europe, we didn't have that long travel, and that, of course, made things easier as well. And here I listed a few other things that when you are going into the airplane that you may want to focus on. We do concentrate a lot to the preventing the airborne transmission, and so when we are in the airplane, we do use face masks, and some of the athletes also choose to use them here during the games. But as I said, we had a major outbreak here in the beginning of Milano Cortina Olympics in our female ice hockey team. They had just arrived from pre-camp to the Milano Olympic Village, and the ice hockey team doctor called me that 3 of his players are vomiting, and so really reacting fast, working with the IOC, with the Milano Cortina, and with other teams, we were able to stop this outbreak from going to other teams and also within our team. So I think it was a pretty successful story, so that after 4 days after the onset of this outbreak, the whole team was again playing the games, and we haven't seen this virus in the other teams. I listed a few things that I find very important, preventing these and stopping these outbreaks. What we decided to do in the beginning, of course, to isolate all the sick athletes and work as a CDC recommendation, having them isolated 48 hours after the last symptom, vomit or diarrhea. We also isolated those roommates that had been with these sick athletes, and looking into the incubation time, we decided to keep them 24 hours isolated. We did close our team lounge. We canceled the practice next day, which made a major challenge because it was open practice for the media. So media was waiting for the team, and so we had to go to the press faster than we actually wanted. And of course, all these hygiene issues we had prepared from Finland, consulted hospital hygienist, having good products with us to clean all the bathrooms and so on. I think it was very important to work with the Olympic community, and we really wanted to be very open what was going on in our team. And we do think that detecting the pathogen right away, we got help from Team USA at this point to detect the first case to be the norovirus, and then Milano Cortina organization tested our whole team, and so we were able to understand what we are dealing with. Of course, there are some things that's not so easy, like stop sharing bottles and towels in the ice hockey team. We were not able to put everybody in the single rooms, and of course, PCR testing is very expensive, so that's not always possible. And then just shortly, I'll go through another case from the Pyeongchang Olympic Games. This is actual apartment there in the village with 6 athletes. First, there was 2 athletes from downhill ski discipline coming to the village. One of them got a GI infection. I never was able to detect what that was, but we took it very seriously. We didn't trust the cleaning there, but I decided that over my dead body, it's going to go around in our team. So I was there cleaning myself the bathroom after the isolation. So that did not actually spread in our team. But then later, there was another athlete coming in who created respiratory infections, and I was able to detect that to be influenza B. And even though it's not always possible to have these PCR devices, I think it's still good to use the antigen, the rapid tests, even though the sensitivity is not very powerful, but still I do trust if the test is positive, then it is positive. We treated the sick athlete with oseltamivir, and also gave oseltamivir as a prevention of prophylaxis for everybody in this apartment, because they were spending a lot of time together, and there was no new influenza B cases from this sick athlete. Not so successful was our RS virus story. This athlete created symptoms, and we detected RS virus in him. Also later, his roommate got the infection, and here you see in these lines our RS virus outbreak going through our cross-country ski team, starting from Finland, from the left side, and then on the right side, actually returning back to Finland in one of the cross-country ski members. But interestingly, this stayed in cross-country skiing. So I think the cumulative predisposition to the virus is also key here. Okay, I think I'm running out of time, so I still want to just thank and thank the IOC consensus group that we have been focusing on this topic, and please read our consensus statement if you haven't familiarized it yet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marit, for that very insightful presentation. I'm sure we all learned a lot, and that's one of the purposes, obviously, of this symposium, to share our experiences and learn from our shared joint experiences. Hopefully not repeat the same or experience the same type of challenges. Obviously, some of it when traveling is difficult. Next speaker is Matthias Felix Gilgen. He will, so as you can see, there's a theme throughout our symposium. We have presented the challenges that we see on athletes' health and well-being. And you can see here now we touched on concussion, which was one of the recurrent issues in the games. We've now just heard from Marit about respiratory infections. And Matthias, he's an associate professor at the Norwegian School of Sports Sciences. He's from Switzerland but has moved to Norway. And he will present to us on some of the work that he's leading on and the IOC is involved in on managing risk in snowboarding and freestyle skiing.
Thank you, Torbjörn. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, and we can hear you.
Good. Okay. So I will talk on very practical hands-on topic that a work that was conducted the last month to build safe and challenging courses in cross. But what is specific to cross bigger slopestyle is that these courses that they are built from scratch on snow every time we have a competition, and that puts some challenges. So I try to give you some insights into that world. Specific to these sports is that we have ski and snowboard in the same course. Ski is often skiing faster, women and men in the same course. And we have this Olympic spread that now in the Olympics that we have athletes that usually don't compete in the competition. So the skill spread is larger than in World Cup races. And then, of course, in these sports, this external variability in snow and wind, they have quite a substantial impact. And then on top of that, now in the Livigno, we have the challenge that we didn't have test events, so we had to build these courses from scratch, where we tried to help with a scientific support and a project that was funded on the IOC. And this was focusing on the most challenging of these disciplines, and that's the cross, ski and snowboard cross, as you have seen here, for athletes competing in the same course. And this planning of such a course that starts with slope. This is an image from December where they still did a lot of groundwork and an idea of how that should look like. And the course is then created as co-creation between race directors from FIS, course builders, course advisors, that's former athletes, and then now also a scientific approach that was funded by the IOC. Now, the first step in the development of such a course is actually to just make it work so that it's not too steep, so that it's not too fast and not too flat. If it's too flat, then just the heaviest athlete would win. And we need to kind of design that, and that's quite a difficult task. And here we have used a scientific approach to support that work that is usually done by course builders and race directors and course advisors on their own. Now, here we, with the help of Torbjörn and Roald, we could set up this scientific project that has background in a project that we were running the 2 last years on ski cross, where we have to try to understand how we need to build these courses to mitigate injury risk, because these are among the disciplines with the highest injury risk, and at the same time build courses that are attractive and challenging, that we have the right person to become the Olympic champion. And this scientific project was based on 10 World Cup races where we have captured the snow surface as a digital model. Then we had skiers equipped with GPS to get an understanding of how that terrain would influence the speed, to then make a speed prediction, and that is then used to plan new courses. That's one part. The second part was to assess what elements or on the course would create an interesting race. And you have seen that this head-to-head battles, and we would like to see kind of which elements that cause most of these rank shifts. And this was conducted by a subjective video study where we were going through the video footage of the races and identifying kind of each time we have these head-to-head overtakings and mark that on our model to see each large black square is a rank shift that would then help us that we have to understand which course specifics would lead to few rank shifts and which would lead to many rank shifts. To understand kind of how these technical features need to be designed so that they have tactical choices. To mitigate injury risk as the main focus of the project, we were trying to understand what is leading to crashes or accidents and finally injuries. And as we have not too many injuries in statistical terms, we would identifying crashes as a predictor of injuries and then asking what leads to these injuries. So we were systematically going through the video footage of the races and identifying situations that could lead to crashes. So in this case, out of balance situations or contacts between athletes, line crossing that would lead to crashes. And we have seen that there's quite a substantial difference between women and men. For men, they often start to fight if the course is too easy, while for women, just the course alone is often difficult enough so they get out of balance and crash due to that, while for men it often takes several elements to lead to a crash. So men have a larger capacity to regain balance and avoid crashing. So that's illustrating a little bit the spread that we have between the skill level of men and women. And then on top of that, we have the two disciplines, ski and snowboard, in the same course. Now to accommodate for that, in the Livigno course, here we have the start. We split them, so the skiers are skiing on that side. At snowboards, they need bank turns. If skiers would ski in the snowboard course in the mid part, they would be way too fast. So this is a way to accommodate for these differences between the two disciplines. On the right side, you see an image just with the days before the Olympics, where the course was built. And now this is a video from the first testing. So the course was designed with a combination of this practitioner knowledge and this scientific approach, where we have tried to bring this together and design a course from which we think should work. Usually takes 2 to 3 seasons, 2 to 3 times to build such a course before it really works well. So coming back to a World Cup race, second or third year is often a big advantage. But this was not possible here in Livigno as there was no test event, and therefore the IOC has decided that they would support the design here with a scientific approach. This is now the video from the first testing. This is the first training. What you see here, that it was snowing overnight, and that's something typical to happen. We have variations in the external conditions, and here it's a snowfall, and that makes the course slower. Now the task is to fine-tune the course, in this case, to accommodate for slow snow conditions. The next day, so we will have again snowfall. So now the task of the team is to fine-tune this course. And what you see here is that athletes had really to kick off to make it into the landing. If they would land short, they would have a large impact here. So the task of the first days after training that happened the last days was kind of to figure out how can we increase the speed with the course that we have. So we were doing adjustments, and to guide these adjustments during training, we had equipped athletes with GPS. So here we have a speed profile along the course. And based on that, we would then figure out where there are possibilities to increase speed. What you see here is that athletes, they pump to increase velocity. So the kind of first part was to figuring out, this is profile of that start straight, to figure out where are possibilities to give them better chances to pump to higher speed. And second part for the snowboarders, it was to widen a bank turn here. This to give them the possibility to use that bank to larger extent and carry more speed out of that turn. Another approach was to investigate rollers here, as you see them along the course, and see how they fit, their dimension fits with the speed that they have at that time, and see if we can kind of shape them in a way that they can have a better possibility to increase speed for the case that we would have in the next days, again, conditions with low snow conditions, to give them the possibility to increase their speed. And doing these changes is a really challenging part, and that is only possible with very skilled and very well-trained groomer drivers. That's really a skill on its own. There's few people on that planet that are really good at this. And so now with these changes, we could increase the speed to when they come to the final jump. And another possibility that we were looking at is actually changing the characteristics of this jump. And for that purpose, we have used computer simulation. What you see here is a profile of that land. It's just from the other side and the image. And you see here flight trajectories based on different speeds. And that's kind of an illustration that if they jump short, land on the deck, then they have a high fall height. So this is something that we want to avoid because that implies injury risk. And then we have used this computer simulation to play around of what we could do. And one option is to move the takeoff closer to the landing. That's the next image. Here we have just move it, takeoff closer to the landing, and then we shorten this critical area. Especially for the snowboarders. The snowboarders, they are now, this is their turn now. That's what we have done. We have moved the takeoff closer to the landing to accommodate for lower speeds and give them a chance to actually make it into the landing. But we have also investigated other possibilities because after the snowboards we will have the skiers, and this is another simulation where we have the takeoff back at where it was, but changing the shape of the knuckle to reduce the angle between the flight trajectory and the snow surface to reduce the impact in the landing. So that's one kind of engineering approach that we use. Another one is we try to predict the unexpected and help the race directors to identify where athletes could be crashing. And for that purpose, we use this as a bird's eye perspective on the course with colored with the speed the athletes would have in different sections. So here, athlete would have 70 kilometers an hour, and then we make simulations that if the athlete would crash here and then go into the netting, so let's say he would crash here from the jump and then go into the netting and then slide along the snow surface, we would see that they would still crash into the netting with 50 kilometers an hour to give indications where on the course that there are locations where we should put good protection to protect them to go into the wild. So this was a very fast forward, quick introduction into the work that we're continually doing now to try to make this ski and snowboard cross work and make it challenging and safe at the same time, which is really a challenge, as as we need to put in technical difficulties to distinguish the best ones from the second best ones, but at the same time, increasing the difficulty is often directly related with injury risk. Increasing the difficulty of obstacles often leads to increased injury risk, and we're trying to find that balance with a mix of practitioner knowledge and now in this case also with a scientific background.
Thank you very much, Matthias, for presenting that elaborate work that has been going on so the preparation for what you just saw has lasted for 10 years, more or less 10 years since we started the planning of this, and thanks to the support of the IOC and importantly FIS as well, we've been able to now implement some of the learnings in these games, and we are now obviously, thanks to all the NOCs medical staff who are participating in our surveillance, we hope to be able to see whether there's a change now in the injury risk in these events. We have just about 8 to 10 minutes now to answer a few questions. I will start, Marco, if you can start with a few questions for you. Maybe questions, so try to answer it if you can in, let's say, 1 minute, 1 to 2 minutes max. The question, Marco, is from CS Guru. He asks, he thanks you for the presentation, and he asks if there are any specific preventive measure including equipment or technology for these Winter Olympics here in hockey?
We can say so. There is no special preventive programs going on. We have education for the players, for the officiating coaches, and for organized officials at how to recognize the situation where it's a possibility to get a concussion. So we have tried to enforce the rules so that more penalties is given in the cases where there is a big risk of to get an injury. So that's what we are doing now. We are discussing about to do in future sensors to analyze the hits, but it's a little bit difficult to know exactly what kind of hit means that it's a concussion.
Maybe so. Thanks for answering that very concisely. That leaves us a little bit more time for one more question. So John and Peter asks 2 similar questions, and it's exactly about what you alluded to. So, if there are any advances on using technology like force acceleration, deceleration monitors in helmets or other such as instrumented mouth guards in hockey currently?
We have some of them, and there is coming new models all the time. But what I try to explain is that it's very difficult to say that what kind of impact, what kind of hit gives an impact that causes a concussion. So it's not clear situation. We need more knowledge about that, and of course we need more knowledge about what's the cumulative hits meaning to the concussion, and it takes time. NHL is doing their work very well when they try to recognize the situations where concussion has occurred, but it's not public yet, so we can't talk about that issue, but it's coming something different way how to analyze the situations.
Thank you very much. Marit, if you have the time, we will, and same for you, if you answer, let's say briefly, we can have time for maybe 2 questions. First is from Anonymous. They ask whether your decision to isolate for vomit/diarrhea would have changed if they had to compete in the next 24 to 48 hours?
I think it would have been impossible to compete in the 24 hours, unfortunately. And fortunately, the community came together and were able to postpone the game. So that I think that was very critical reaction. Otherwise, if we had gone too early to the game, the virus would have been in the opponent team as well. So we need to be careful with this, especially with norovirus, which really spreads easily, and have enough isolation time.
Agreed. Another one, it's from, I swear I'm not discriminating. This is again CS Guru. Dr. Marit, thank you for the great presentation. Do you think pre-probiotics have a key role to play in gut microbiome as a cause for immune dysfunction and then leading on to gastrointestinal respiratory infections? What do you prescribe your athletes? Thank you.
First of all, I don't think there's a single factor that will change everything. It's really a puzzle that needs to come together. And I do promote good quality nutrition. That's where you do get probiotics and also probiotics. So yes, in some cases I do prescribe, but most often our athletes just use a good quality diet.
Very well. I'm reading through the questions and didn't have time to sort a few from Matthias. A general question, Matthias. Is it not winter itself and the snow ice terrain a contributing risk factor for the injuries?
So, yeah, so the venue is actually built with artificial snow. There's large volumes that were needed, and now the last days we got natural snow. So that's mixing together now, and the mixture can be quite challenging with what we have just seen, that there can get quite large differences between in speed. If it would only be artificial snow, then it would be easier. Now we get this mixture, and maybe the next days we get more natural snow. I would not say it's kind of harming directly, but it's regulating the speed, and speed is the main factor for impact injuries. If snow surface is hard, then it's often easier to have a consistent surface from top to bottom, and variations in snow conditions is an injury risk factor that we know also from other snow disciplines, that if that changes, athletes would tune their setup for the most aggressive sections. And now in the ski cross we have one turn, a negative turn, where you need to have sharp edges, so athletes will tune that for them. If it would get warm and then soft in other parts, then the equipment setup could be too aggressive for these other parts. So yeah, so we can say that snow directly is an injury risk factor, but it depends a bit on the conditions in which way it is a risk.
The strengths of the work that Matthias has been doing is that him and his team has measured the range of different snow conditions as well, and that is published, Matthias, so everyone online can probably find that as well, but maybe you can just I
can put some links to find some of that work.
Yeah. So then we have just 1 or 2 more minutes before session 4. Maybe Matthias, Adam is asking about joint overloads, and if that's something that has been taken into consideration during the experiments.
Joint overload, or?
Yes, I imagine he's asking about specific joints in the human body and what the impact in these.
Yeah, no, it's not that body part specific. It's that the large part of injuries are impact injuries, or the severe ones, as we in cross, we travel at 60 kilometers an hour, and we have obstacles that you have seen, those rollers. So if you crash into such a roller, then that's leading to impact injuries. And then on top of that, we have of course all those skiing specific knee injuries. That is maybe still the main part of it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much to all the panelists. Really appreciate that of session number 3. And with that, I will give the word to Jane, I believe.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. I'm just going to show the next setup. So thanks for those that are speakers at 10. Please, there are a number of questions in the Q&A. So for those speakers that can address the questions, please have a look there. And thanks to everyone for your engagement thus far and all the great questions. Really honored to close out the last session, number 4, Olympic Medicine Toolkit, where we have each speaker share with 5 minutes just some additional resources for every practitioner. So we'll start off with Scott Sloan, who will be is our mental health lead, who will be discussing mental health support resources. And Scott, over to you.
Good evening, everyone from Livigno. Thank you for the chance to present, Jane. And I appreciate Dr. Carla's input and framing well the IOC's approach to mental health. This section is dedicated to resources, but I did want to share a little bit about the IOC's approach to mental health during Olympic Games, which is actually no different to how we approach mental health outside of the Games. So Carla shared a little bit of the mental health spectrum. If you look at the diagram below, it kind of looks at the kind of spectrum through a treatment approach that incorporates both promotion, prevention, and response to mental health concerns. And she mentioned certainly the ability to seek healthcare at the polyclinic and mediclinic during the Olympic Games, but it's our approach that we would cover various parts in the mental health spectrum in the Olympic Games, and I'll refer to some of these projects in the next couple of minutes. So beyond the OCOG services and recognizing that seeking help in Games time can be quite challenging for athletes, especially those who don't have embedded mental health professionals in their team, we created a space that focuses on decompression and performance. That it was an effort to destigmatize help seeking in mental health and promote earlier intervention in the competition period. And so that's where you'll find myself and Gloria Viceras in Games time. We're mental health first responders. And this approach we have encapsulated in a editorial in the BJSM that was published last year that gives some of the founding principles and science behind this approach in Games time. We also recognize that around 80% of athletes only go to a single Olympic Games, and it should be special, and it is special. And we recognize the potential harm from online abuse, which can cause real and embodied harm to athletes. So we deploy a system called the Cyber Abuse Protection Service in Games time, which forms a protective bubble around athletes. So we try to target negative comments related to athletes and have them removed by the platforms. But more significantly, Gloria and myself and the team follow up with athletes who are being targeted to ensure their well-being and their safety. We've recently published a guidelines and framework from what we've learned from the system being deployed in Paris, and look out for this and the recommendations in the next few days. Lastly, we recognize that not all teams have access to mental health resources, and in the Olympic Games, the time after the closing ceremony is particularly a vulnerable time for athletes and the entourage. So where resources may drop off, we have committed to providing a mental health helpline. It provides counselling on any issue that matters for all Olympians competing in Paris now for Milano Cortina for a period of 4 years following the Olympic Games. And in Italy, this toll-free number is currently live. Now to the resources. Roald might mention this a bit later, and apologies, Roald, if I jumped across you, but for sports medicine physicians and licensed mental health practitioners, the IOC does have an advanced diploma. It's an online course that lasts around 9 months, and it focuses on epidemiology, the management of concerns, screening tools, and treatment approaches, and it is led by the chairs of our mental health consensus group, and is really a first point of call for any sports medicine physicians wanting to specialize in elite sport, and there's a link at the bottom here. The IOC's mental health assessment tool is designed to help identify and assess mental health symptoms in elite athletes. It's for qualified clinicians. The screen tool was devised by the IOC's mental health working group members. It's been translated into over 12 languages and is an evidence-based pathway for the early detection and identification of risk. And the updated version, the SMAT2, will be released in around Easter of this year. The IOC's Mental Health Essentials course is a new mental health awareness course, and its goal is to improve knowledge first response and create a shared language across sports organizations, and it's aimed at athlete welfare officers, liaisons, or safeguarding leads, and it really recognizes and supports the concept that mental health is everybody's business in a sports organization. And again, the link and more details to that at the bottom. The last few resources, mainly for reference, if it's helpful, the IOC has a consensus statement in mental health in athletes. The update is expected again after Easter of this year, where it has compiled and looked at all the prevailing and recent research in the period since 2019. So that is forthcoming. The IOC's Mental Health Action Plan is our strategic roadmap and has been guiding us in our strategy of the last 3 or 4 years in the subject area. And the last two, again, just for reference, a toolkit from 2021 giving practical guidance to many across the sports organization. And for those interested in best practice in mental health in sporting events, we wrote a paper alongside Margot Mountjoy and co-authors last year, which gives much more details on this. So that's it. I think I hand to Gloria now. Gloria, I've still got the screen, but I hand to you for your input.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Scott. So the first thing I'm going to tell you in terms of resources is the IOC consensus statement. This was published at the end of 2024. It's the work of 15 international experts over the course of 2 years. They reviewed some 20,000 scientific papers in 9 languages. And it is important because it identifies not only the problems, but provides also 43 actionable recommendations to tackle interpersonal violence in sport. Next slide, Scott, please. Okay, so the IOC also has a program, a certification program called the IOC Certificate Safeguarding Officer in Sport. It's offered in Sports Oracle, and by the end of this year, we will have 436 graduates from 112 countries. This is one of its kind course, and it is important to know that if you are linked to an NOC, there is Olympic Solidarity funding to cover the cost of this program via and through your National Olympic Committee. They can propose you as a candidate to take this course. We also have all of the graduates from this course that agree to to be added to this platform. We have a safeguarding officer search tool, and you can search a safeguarding officer in your country. You can search by language, by country, by experience or service, by organization type, and of course by name. This is very, very useful when you are managing cases, for example, that involve people from different languages, or you need somebody who knows the rules in a different country than yours. It's a useful tool because you'll find people that are trained on these issues in this platform. Next, Scott. We've also published we've launched the IOC Train the Trainer program. Is Safeguarding Essentials for Safeguarding Focal Points, and it's aimed at maximizing the footprint and to build national level capacity in safeguarding through the training of safeguarding focal points. It covers prevention, it covers how to receive complaints, and referral pathways to referring to the authorities if needed. There is a link there for registration if you want to apply. And yeah, next slide, please. Scott? Okay, and then we have a lot of more resources and information that you can find in the IOC, in the Athletes 365 platform, on the page of SafeSpot. So there's a lot of videos, the fact sheets, there is a lot of other resources that you can find there in that space online. I think that's it, Scott. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Scott. And now we're going to turn it over to Professor Roald Bahr for the last of our sessions.
Thank you very much. To follow up what Scott and Gloria have talked about, I will now discuss more. Just a second. I will now discuss some other educational and certification opportunities in sports medicine and sports science. So the mission of IOC Health, Medicine, and Science is to protect and promote the health of the athlete. And to that end, there are a number of different educational opportunities for each of you. I will start by describing the IOC diplomas. This is an example, the IOC diploma in sports medicine, a 2-year online program, which in the end will provide substantial, important knowledge to be able to work as a sports medicine physician. But this is only one of the programs. Here are the other 9. There's a diploma in sports physical therapies. There's a diploma in sports nutrition, one in strength and conditioning, one in mental health in athletes, and then one in sports pharmacy, and that's the newest kid on the block. And otherwise, there are also these certificates, which are programs lasting from between 6 months to 3 months. I am delighted to share with you that scholarships are offered each year to NLC personnel who can apply towards participation, towards coverage of the costs of participation in these programs. But the important thing is the application then has to be supported by and go through the National Olympic Committees. Another educational opportunity are the IOC advanced courses in sports medicine, and the aim of these is to provide team physicians, in this case, with updated information and knowledge to help them protect the health of the elite athlete, including youth athletes. Our primary target group for these is NOC and IF physicians in countries where there is less easily available advanced sports medicine training. The Advanced Team Physician course is a 3-day course that has been running since 2008. There's a 2 to 1 day course in cardiovascular evaluation of elite athletes, which has been running since 2011. There's a new respiratory care of Olympic athletes course, 1 to 2 days again, which was run for the first time in 2024 in Rome. And in 2025, we also added 1 day on safeguarding essentials for team physicians. I'm delighted to tell you about the course that we held in 2025 in Senegal, in Dakar, Senegal, which was not a coincidence, but is aligned with the fact that Dakar is organizing the next Youth Olympic Games, where 2 physicians per NOC in Africa, 1 male and 1 female, plus 20 of the physicians who are going to take care of the athletes in Dakar 2026 were invited to take part. And again, with support from Olympic Solidarity, each NLC was offered 2 scholarships with all costs paid to participate in these courses in November last year. And our plan is to repeat this exercise in Asia later this year in 2026. Details of dates and place still to be determined. An important educational tool is the British Journal of Sports Medicine, where there are 4 special issues each year called the Injury Prevention Health Promotion issues. Up until now, there are more than 60 special issues which have been produced in collaboration between BJSM and the IOC medical department. And key in these statements is the publication of all of the consensus statements which have been developed since 2016. In total, there are 47 consensus statements published in the British Journal, and all of them are open access, available for you to freely download. The 2 latest example is the FAIR consensus, Female, Women and Girl Athletes Injury Prevention, which was published just before, where the meeting was held in March, and the issue was published just before Christmas. We've already heard about the mental health issue, which will, where the meeting in June will produce the special issue to be published around Easter this year. And in 2026, the next one is planned on exercise before, during, and after pregnancy. Again, with a consensus statement to come late 2026 or early 27. One series of consensus meetings organized in collaboration with FIFA, FA, ice hockey, and rugby are the series of consensus meetings on concussion in sport. We already heard Marco talk about some of the outcomes, the practical outcomes of these meetings. The next meeting will be held early 2028, date and venue to be determined. Some would say that the main conference organized by the IOC is the World Conference on Prevention of Injury and Illness in Sport, held for the first time in Monaco in 2011, then 2014, 2017, 2021, delayed 1 year because of the pandemic, and 2024. And I'm delighted to share with you the dates for the 8th IOC World Conference on Prevention of Injury and Illness in Sport, which will take place in Monaco in December 2027. I hope to see all of you there. And the final resource that I will cover this evening is the Get Set Train Smarter app, freely downloadable from the App Store and the Android for both Apple and Android phones. available with injury prevention exercises for all the Olympic sports and for various body regions, available in all of the languages indicated here. Plus, we also hope that Portuguese and Polish will be available sometime this year. So with that, I thank you very much for your attention.
And thank you so much, Harold. I really appreciate that. And to all of our speakers today, I have the privilege of closing out the session. We know that there are a few questions, and if we can answer some, but please do reach out, and certainly we'd love to be able to hear from you. I'm going to try one more time to share the video, and hopefully we're going to get some sound, even if it's from my phone. We're going to try to be as creative as possible here. We are all together, a lot of us in this room together, and we were debating whether or not we could sing to it a cappella if it comes on silent again, but we realized that would prompt a mass exodus of all of you. So we're going to try to do this the old-fashioned way and play the video, and I will try to play the song that usually accompanies it off my phone. Otherwise, get your favorite motivational song ready. When you watch this recording in future, when you share it, you can do the same for the introduction. But as we get this ready, I just want to thank, a special thanks to BJSM. Thank you for co-hosting this. Thank you for all of your help and support in getting out all of the consensus statements, all of the research. It's been fantastic to partner with you. I want to thank all of our partners, speakers, those that are here in Milano Cortina that have given up of their time when there's many, many things to do. And I'm sure all of your email inboxes and text messages and calls from people over the course of the last few hours while you've been with us, and now you'll have to go back to that. And as I say, it's something that it takes the whole day, every single day, 24/7 while we're here, and we appreciate you for your care of the athletes. We want to hear from you. Please reach out to us through the website. You can contact me on LinkedIn or others. Just really want to hear from you in terms of how we can improve, what you liked about this, what you didn't, how else we can share Olympic medicine with you. And so with that, I'm going to try one more time to share the video. And I might ask for more support on this as well, if we can grab it here. Okay. So Torbjörn, you can tell me if it is actually playing when I play it.
Yes.
Okay. All right, everyone. Okay. Okay, we hear it's not coming through, so that means we have to start to sing. Please, no, we won't, but thank you so much to everyone. We are so appreciative of all of your engagement, support, your questions, and we are so fortunate to have you as a community of practice out there listening and sharing with us. Let's all together help keep athletes' dreams alive, and please ensure that you reach out. And as we mentioned before, one of the major parts of our Olympic movement is to build a better world through sport. And we know together that we can also build a healthier world as well. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful evening and morning and afternoon, wherever you are coming from. Thank you, and let's keep our athletes' dreams alive together. Thank you.